So, how can you recreate what Lonnie is experiencing in Colombia?
Question gets asked quite often, so how do I do this? How do I recreate this? I'm not doing anything different than what Jesus did. But it takes time. The disciples didn't get to the point of going out and witnessing, going out and leading and, ministering to other people until it was 3 years down the road. Culture change, if you're moving from one thing to another, when I was in the business world and actually taught this, is 3 to 5 years to change a culture. Our culture won't do that. Well, if it doesn't change in 6 months, well, we need to change what we're doing. The challenge you have with this is most student ministers don't hang around that long. What I'm talking about doing is a culture change. No programs. We're going to do relational ministry the way Jesus did. You're going to have a lot of people jump ship. Students, parents, especially if you're in a ministry right now that's tied a lot to programs, events, and parties. But you've got to be willing to get started. And you've got to be willing to stick with it. Because I know there's times in that 3 years' time that I was questioning it, my pastor was questioning it, but we stayed faithful to what God was saying. Here's the model that Jesus did. He didn't go out and have a big event and try and attract people that he could share with them. He picked people and then he began to disciple them. And they became leaders, and those leaders began to teach others. Churches look for you to build a student ministry with lots and lots of students. And frankly, that's, if you just want a lot of people showing up, there's a lot of things you can do to just have people showing up. But that's not what Jesus did. He wasn't trying to draw a crowd for the purpose of drawing a crowd and hope that something would happen. I think what we need to do is win souls for Christ and disciple them that they will win souls for Christ, and that there would be multipliers where it's not just the student minister himself who's doing it, but everybody else. And the only way that you can do that is not to program it and not to do it in mass, but to do it with individuals. Build students, not build a student ministry. I think that's the key thing a lot of times. The discipline of building leaders is one you're going to continue and continue and continue. But once you get it started, it begins to reproduce itself, where it's inherent now when students come in. Lonnie's going to expect me to be a leader. My leaders here are going to expect those students. We're looking for those jewels, those leaders in there we can begin to polish. So it's not one of these straight up things. I go work with somebody for a while, they level off, and you help them a little bit more. But how do you get started? You just get started. I got started with picking a couple students. I didn't announce anything. I said, hey, why don't you and I start meeting together? And started to set the example for that. Instead of saying, okay, let's get 14 students together, let's get 14 guys together. You'll never get that off the ground. I kind of look at it as like you're herding chickens down the road. You can't send them all at once, but you can just kind of move them along a little bit at a time. And over a period of time, you'll get them all going down the road. But you can't do it all at once. 3 to 5 years, you can make this happen. But you've got to be committed to it, disciplined about it, and you need the support of your church.